Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our demonstration today. We've just opened the doors, so we're going to wait a minute or so that everyone can get their audio and video working the way they would like it to work. Hope everyone's having a good week. My name is Lisa Hill. I work at Infobase, and we're thrilled today to bring you I think it's the third in our year-long series entitled Sharing Community Through Conversation, Curricula, and Care with Adam Smith and Heather Liu. Today's focus is going to be on reflections on 2021 college freshmen, what we've learned, how they're different, and how we support. I still see folks joining us. The way GoToWebinar works is there's a nice chat box right there that looks really attractive. Unfortunately, it is one way only. So we can send messages to you, but you can't respond. But we would like this panel to be interactive. We'd love you to ask questions. So in order to do that, you have to find the questions box on the GoToWebinar module. It might look like a question mark, depending on your browser. It might look like the word questions. So I would love for all of you to click that right now and just type in where you're calling from. City, town, name of institution, doesn't matter. Just want to make sure you understand how to ask questions. And I'd love for Heather and Adam to make sure they see those questions come in because they're going to be monitoring the question box throughout the demonstration. So go ahead on your GoToWebinar module, look for either the question mark or the word questions, click on it. And Heather and Adam, they're coming in now, so hopefully you guys can see them. And we can see Bronx, New York is here, Clarksville, Georgia, Raleigh, North Carolina, North Dakota, University of Tampa, Wichita State, Grand Forks, North Dakota. We're getting all the states. This is fantastic. Connecticut, Florida, Pennsylvania. Hi from Wisconsin. Hello, Wisconsin. Arizona. More Pennsylvania. This is great. So that is where you ask questions. So when they pop up in your mind, just pop them right in where it says questions, and Adam and Heather will be monitoring that box. These presentations, we always say we book for an hour. Conversation might go longer. So I just always make an announcement that everybody registered, everybody sitting here today will receive a full recording of the demonstration. So you have to leave early. If you have to leave early, don't worry. We'll send you the recording in your inbox in a couple days. Without further ado, I think that's about it. I'm going to disappear from view, and I'm going to say thank you so much, Heather. Thank you, Adam. And off to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being here, y'all. We're so happy to see you today. We have a wonderful lineup of wonderful participants and panelists here. Looks like we have about 100 folks joining us from all across the United States, maybe some international folks. We have some questions coming in just about tech, and just to quickly kind of give you all a little bit of information. Any questions coming in about technology, Lisa and the folks from Infobase will be answering your questions one by one. So just know that that information will be addressed. Those of us who are facilitating the panel, we won't be able to answer all of those questions for you. So just know that those will be addressed in just a few moments. I'm gonna just toss it on over. Adam, look up. I'm tossing it to you. Did you catch it? You didn't. But I'm going to toss it over to Adam just to briefly introduce our subject today, and then we'll go ahead and frame the conversation for you all.
Yeah, thanks, Heather. Appreciate it. Thank you all for being here, and know that it's a busy time of year, a lot going on, spring break, all the things. We really appreciate y'all being here, sharing with us. We have some outstanding panelists today, but this is more important. We try not to call these webinars, we try to call them national conversations. So yeah, I have questions that I'm gonna ask our folks, and we'll dialogue and talk about things, but it's also really important to hear your thoughts. So please use that question box, put questions in there, put thoughts in there. These are always better when it's interactive and involved, especially when all of us at times feel like the voice in the wilderness, proverbially, you know, on our campuses, at our schools. It seems like certain folks are connected, but all the folks that are doing the work at times don't. So yes, Steve-O, yeah, 100%. So everybody who's registered, whether you attend or you don't, you will get a copy of the recording. Heather also does some amazing work post-event, and will provide you all with some resources as well as a blog. So that will go to everyone who's registered. So if you have friends or you have colleagues who weren't able to attend, all they need to do is register or be registered, and then they'll get the recording of that. So today we're talking about, I love to talk about, this idea years ago about students being college ready, right? I've been in the higher ed business for a while. Oh, we need more students that are college ready. And at some point I started thinking about, well, what about our institutions being more student ready? And that's even more important now than ever, right? Is that our institutions weren't student ready for students pre-war. I like to call this the post-war student that we have right now. But we're definitely not ready for these students. We weren't built for these students. And so our conversation today centers on being student ready in higher ed, but then also all of the things that we're all seeing, and all of our K-12 partners and our nonprofit partners that are here and families. I think it's important to hear from higher ed folks, what are we seeing among our current freshman class that makes them different from any other students we've ever seen before? And our panelists have some great thoughts and ideas about that. But then how does that change how institutions who are there to serve, support, love on, care for them, how do we change how we serve, how we communicate with them, how we support them, how we guide them, how we teach them? So that's really our conversation today. I'm going to kick it back to Heather, who will set the space and the place for us, and then we'll introduce our team and we'll get rolling.
Thanks, Adam. So as you all know, and as Adam has alluded to, over the past few years, we've all been in it, right? And so something that feels not just important, but necessary is to really acknowledge the time, space, and place that we're in, and we have been in, and this time, space, and place that our ancestors, past, present, and future, have really created for us, right? And the resilience and resistance that they've created for us. And so we just want to invite you to just take a few moments to ground yourself, because this conversation, as Adam alluded to as well, can sometimes feel like a relief, but also can feel somewhat heavy, especially if we're feeling isolated, marginalized, and or just alone within our professional, personal, political spaces that we sit in. So just want to invite you just to take a few breaths, take a few moments just to recognize what you're carrying and holding in this space, but then also what you hope to take away, right, with and for community. Many of us currently reside on the stolen lands of Indigenous peoples. Myself, Heather, is located on Dakota and Ojibwe land in Minnesota, and Adam is currently on the land of Shawnee and Osage peoples in Kentucky. Since we are remote, I invite you to type the land and space you occupy in the question box. We honor the physical, psychological, emotional, and spiritual spaces that we occupy. These lands, often unceded, have been taken by force and colonized and have legacies of violence, murder, and pain. This land and its eco-memory long precede us and will long outlive us in wisdom and energy. I want to invite us to recognize how this space, time, and place hold many truths and power and deserves to be reunited and restored with the Indigenous peoples of the lands we occupy. And land back is a much needed and necessary action and praxis as healers and community. Land back is not just a phrase, but we must act upon this through reparations, legislation, solidarity, and practice by redistributing power, wealth, and in action through meaningful relationship building, coalition, led by the people most impacted at the center. I see folks throwing information into the question box. Thank you. We also honor our ancestors and the narratives of the peoples and their knowledge who have empowered us to be here in community today. We are in the midst of a global pandemic and continued racialized violence. Legacies of colonialism, genocide, and boarding schools, COVID-19, murders of Black folks at the white supremacist hands of policing, violence and assaults on trans women of color, and today is also the Trans Day of Visibility. Stop Line 3 and ecological violence and hate against Asian women, femmes, elders, and youth, immigration and detention centers, and continued xenophobia against communities of color. Our histories are complicated, tangled, and filled with resilience of our ancestors from before and yet to come. Who are the ancestors you call upon to guide you in this moment? I invite you to write their names in the question box. We want to imagine spaces and places where we are liberated, transformed, and in solidarity, together in struggle, magic, hope, love, imagination, and in futures. I recognize the immense power and privilege we all hold in sharing our time together today. And I wish you and our community health, safety, slivers of joy, and care in the midst of a time of grief, death, pain, and trauma. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to send it over to Adam. We're going to do some brief panelist introductions, about a minute each, and then we're going to talk and have our community conversation.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you all for sharing that with us. Adam Smith, good to be here. He, him, his. I'm a husband, a father, a papa. That's the most important stuff in my life. That's me with hair over there, Christine Rose. I've been doing this work. My background is in theology, pastoral ministry, and the calling on my life has just ended up being working in the higher ed space, started community organizing and doing nonprofit work. And like so many of us that are in this, we owe it to TRIO. I had 3 kids and couldn't work in nonprofits anymore. And my local community college got an Upward Bound grant and said, here's the grant, build the program. And it was an opportunity to continue doing the work, but do it in a place where I could maybe cash my check when I got it and my health insurance would be paid. So never really planned. I was a horrible student. So never really planned to do higher ed work, but have been bringing that ministry of washing feet and tipping tables to the higher ed industry now for 25 years. Blessed to have worked with some of these lionesses that are here talking today, and have worked alongside with them in different places. So most recently, a lot of my work has been in campus transformation around retention and student success. So whether that's in Ohio at the University of Akron, the University of Alabama, right now in Kentucky. So great to be here with y'all. My contact information is there related to my partnership with Speak Out and some of the work that Heather and I do. That our work is sometimes the same as our vocation, but oftentimes different. Good to be here.
Thanks, Adam. I'll just do a quick introduction and then I'll send it over to my other colleagues. But once again, Heather, I also go by H and HC. I use she, her, and hers pronouns. I identify as an angry Gemini Earth Dragon. I'm multiracial and Asian, queer. I'm cisgender and gender expansive. And I identify as a disabled survivor and someone who's surviving. And I've been an artist and post-secondary educator in Minnesota and across the country. But now I am also an independent consultant and working in nonprofit focusing on cultural arts and healing strategies, specifically around leadership, community coalition, and the ways that we can really come together around our racialized experiences and dismantling white supremacy. My information's there.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kiana Preston. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm also known as Aunt Kiki. I have 2 beautiful nieces that adore me, and I'm also affectionately known as Aunt Kiki to some of my students as well as some of my coworkers. And people also have referred to me as Dr. Q. I am a woman of faith. I am anchored in that. It's something that guides and leads me in many ways. I am first gen. I believe in lifelong learning. One of the two major things in my life and why I'm so glad to be in this conversation is I pride myself on being an influencer, on empowering primarily women and helping them find that space that they should be in whatever industry they've been called to, whether it be education, business, religion, you know, media, entertainment. I don't care what it is. I want you to shine and bring all your mess to the table because it's all good. You know, I definitely want people to feel liberty in bringing everything to the table. One of the things about higher ed, I've been in higher ed for about 24 years. It was by accident. I thought I was going to go to the Peace Corps, climb up the ladder and be an international ambassador. I had dreams. But how many know calling is much higher sometimes than what you even can imagine? And so one of the things that's really important for me is advocating for student-centeredness at all levels and in all ways. And so a lot of the things that I find myself very much engaged in, or what piques my interest, is systems and processes in higher ed that are transparent, because I believe we have to be authentic on the front end, as well as, you know, in all ways that we deliver our services. And so as we are in this room, one of the biggest things, as we have created a safe space, is for us just to take time to be honest with ourselves. You know, I mean, if your completion rate is not where it needs to be, it's time to do the work. You know, if your tuition is down, let's just do the work and let's admit to ourselves where we are so that we can move forward. So I'm happy to be here today, and I can't wait to see where we go from here.
Hello, everybody. Buenas tardes. My name is Christine Fabre Rose, and I am here. Thank you to Adam Smith. I am Colombian, originally from Bogota, Colombia, and then moved to the States with my family, Miami, Florida, and then moved to Akron, Ohio. I've been in Ohio for about 10 years. My background is in social work, so I love working with my students, coaching them, supporting, mentoring. I am also a wife, and I have two beautiful, amazing daughters. So my work really is to empower and support Latinx students, especially here at Akron, at the University of Akron. So that's just a little bit about me. Welcome, and thank you for having me.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Nora Atkins, and I use she, her, hers pronouns. I identify as Latina, Mexican American, born here in the U.S., but to Mexican parents. Growing up, it can be a little weird trying to figure out, you know, where you're from, what you doing, you know. You are neither from there nor from here exactly. So I do have a passion for serving just students that are just trying to find like their voice and their place. You know, things can be a little bit crazy, and I do have a true passion for that. I am first gen, first in my family to go to college and then be, you know, out as a graduate. So I'm paying it forward and making sure that, you know, students complete their degrees, especially if they're from first gen households. I am a mom to two kiddos, a little baby who's 8 months, and my grown 4.5-year-old, because listen, it's 4.5, not 4. She's 4.5. And they are just my everything. They are my incentive to keep pushing forward and motivate me, and to yeah, just give me all the happiness, even though some days can be a little bit hard, but we keep moving. I have been in higher education for 7+ years or so, the last of which, the last 5 have been here in academic advising. I have my master's in college student personnel administration, and yeah, just have a deep passion for working in retention services and student success. So I'm really happy to be here as part of this conversation.
Hi, I'm Teresa Radomski-Bamba. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. My background professionally is in advising and student retention. I used to work with Adam and with Christine, and now I'm at Miami University of Ohio. That is the cold Miami University, not the warm one. I am a mom. I've got 2 little boys. I like to knit and run and read, and I spend a lot of my free time being an introvert and a lot of my work time interacting with people all day long, and I love it. So I was really motivated to work in higher education when I learned that the thing that predicted higher education or educational success overall wasn't how hard you worked, how smart you were. It had everything to do with where you come from, what your background is, that the things that were correlated with success in education were things that people couldn't control. So that's what got me into working in higher education. And I see community being the thing that really drives our students to success. And I know that's something that I think we all share, but that's been made really clear to me over especially the last 2 years as we've come through this pandemic.
It's really good. Thank y'all for introducing. Carl, I got your questions, so y'all please put your questions in the chat, but I'll just kind of get us started. Christine, can you talk a little bit, because we kind of knew, everybody knew who's in this game. The freshman class was going to be tough, right? Because they were remote and all these things, and they were going to have a hard time. But the kind of things that we've seen blew people's minds with this freshman class, right? And like we talk about, after World War II, nobody expected anyone to be the same. These students have witnessed more horrific things on their phones than anybody has seen in the history of this planet. And they're different because of it. What are, in your mind, what are the top 2 differences that you've seen with this freshman class as opposed to other classes? How are they different?
Only 2. Their anxiety level is at a whole other level that I've ever seen before. They are struggling to make decisions as simple as what to wear today. They're really struggling with these types of decisions of, again, what do I wear? What am I going to eat today? Which then translates into what classes am I going to take? Who is my advisor? How do I talk to my advisor? How do I talk to my professor and ask them a question about the upcoming exam? So their anxiety is to the next level. And I think another big issue is interpersonal communication, because they lost so much of that during the pandemic, and we're still in it, right? I mean, we're in this virtual world right now because of it, right? Their interpersonal communications and the way they talk to college professionals has really changed. They don't know how to just make decisions. I really think that the anxiety and the interpersonal communications have been very difficult for them. I had a student yesterday, they're supposed to meet with conduct because they're dealing with some life stuff, and conduct called me and said, hey, do you know where so-and-so is? Because they missed their meeting yesterday, where another student would have showed up to their conduct meeting, but these students are so afraid. That's what I would say would be the 2 biggest things.
Those are really good. Yeah, I mean, I think what we thought, many of us in the higher ed space, was we thought the 2020 cohort, so our current second years, we thought, oh, we'll have 2 freshman classes. And, they didn't go through the normal freshman things. And we're going to basically have 2 freshmen, and we're going to have to do, at Kentucky, everybody gets in the middle of Kroger Field and takes their picture looking like the state. And the students were asked, well, hey, we missed that. And there was like 20 of them who showed up, right? Because they've moved on, right? And so what we've seen is that our sophomores, juniors, and seniors act like pre-war sophomores, juniors, and seniors. They really aren't that different. We can predict The thing with the freshman class is they talked about all these things. Oh, we miss interpersonal interactions. We miss student organ activities. We miss, and across the country, student engagement and involvement is at an all-time low. They're not involved in student orgs. They're not going to the rec center. They're not all of the things. And it's been really interesting. They've missed class a little bit, like going and having the option of having what they remember to be normal. And so Teresa's a runner. So, you go out for a run and you have all this energy and you take off. It's a beautiful day like it was yesterday and not today, right? You go out for this run and you make it about 2 blocks and your legs start getting heavy. And then before you know it, you're just sitting on the curb, man. And we've seen students who, yes, mental health, behavior, all this stuff is real and that's really happening. But some of it is just atrophy. Like they don't know why. Why are you not coming to class anymore? Oh, I don't know. Well, we need to, oh, I just can't do it right now. I mean, are you depressed? Has your meds, I mean, the typical stuff we would ask. It's none of that. It's just, it's too much. It's too much to go get my mail, right? Is what we're dealing with. Teresa, how about you from your lens? What are, like, with this freshman group, what are the top 2 differences or the things that you thought you would see that are different? What are your observations with them?
I'm definitely seeing some of the same things Christine talked about with, increased mental health issues, increased anxiety. I think it's a lot of the decision making is terrifying, but there's also, I think we have come through this and we've forgotten that students kind of didn't have the same like norms and expectations for a year and a half, maybe 2 years, and now they're coming in here and the things that we kind of take for granted as, well, students know this, we have to make explicit to them again. So some of the things, they'll say, well, I can't come to class today because I scheduled another appointment at the same time. And maybe that appointment needs to happen at that time because that's the only time they can get in to see, their doctor or whatever. But other times they're just kind of trying to fly under the radar there, and they're not what faculty are seeing, what advisors are seeing, what professionals are seeing is one set of behaviors that is not what we expect. And we just haven't told students, this is what we are expecting, so that the students know this is the expectation. And then we're surprised when they're not always meeting that expectation. And I think that that's something that we may have forgotten, that they either don't know or they've forgotten because for 2 years they were experiencing school through a screen like this, and there was a lot of good that came with that, but also a lot of challenges that that came with that. And the shift back to in-person instruction and in-person interaction, you forget the things that you haven't used. It's, like you said, it atrophied, and we didn't repeat ourselves with that. And then with all of that, you layer in, the challenges, the changes, the mental health challenges. I think all of that is kind of combining.
It's really good. Yeah, has anybody found themselves, today there was a meeting on campus and it was 5 minutes before the meeting and I clicked on it and it was in person. And I was like, what? In person, bro? So there's no virtual option? Right? Now busy days are when you click 2 seconds before the meeting starts and people show up and you talk to them and then you do it again and do it again. Busy days for me as, I guess, a senior administrator at a university used to be walking all over campus, getting 500,000 steps. Now it's sitting in the same doggone space for 8 hours, 9 hours straight and looking at this screen and talking to people. I think giving, students have had those same experiences, right? Is that now you're expecting me, well, wait a minute. If I have a choice to go to telehealth or go see my doctor, I'm doing telehealth, bro. Now, I mean, the cat's out the bag. At Kentucky, we have robots that deliver food on campus. Google it. It's crazy, right? It's just a whole different world. And some of this stuff is now, right? And you all know one of the things we always talk about is I'm not willing to hold students accountable for something I didn't teach them. Let's assume they know nothing, right? And in our life, this last 2 years has felt like a lot. Now imagine being 15, or, we just did some orientations for high school students, and this pandemic started when they were sophomores, right? My grandbabies don't remember life different from this. Teresa's don't. Christine's don't. Nora's don't. This is life now. And it's us who keep thinking we're going back to, but they know we're not going back to, right? The little ones know this is normal. And the older ones, they know that we lied to them last time when we said, oh, just give it a couple weeks and we'll go back to higher. This fall will be the same. And they're like, man, please, you got me once. And then I got to watch George Floyd die on my phone. Then I got to watch Amir Locke get murdered in his bed. And I'm not turning to it like I had to do in the 90s when I watched the LA uprisings. I had to turn the TV station and intentionally go to it. I'm just scrolling and that's coming in my brain and I'm 15. I mean, that secondary trauma is now primary, right? And you add all of those layers to, Kiana, I wanted you to talk a little bit from your vantage point, because you and I vibed on this a week or so ago. All of our institutions have went test optional. I don't know if there's one school that isn't test optional. And for all of us that are in the TRIO space, shout out to my TRIO fam, we've been complaining about those stinking tests for years. But the problem, we also knew that grades in certain classes from certain schools didn't mean the same thing. I would see valedictorians with 4.0s from certain schools and be like, bro, you got a 19 composite, right? I mean, that was typical. That's Black, Latinx, poor. We were used to grade inflation, right? And we had to kind of coach students through that. But now, because of virtual, the private school kids, the suburban kids, and God bless our K-12 colleagues, but that curriculum was not meant to be delivered virtually. And so we had this coalescing of a curriculum that wasn't meant to be delivered online. Teachers who, my daughter, who's a teacher, had a 9-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old, and she's trying to teach 7th grade boys at the same time at home. So what they were given was something called mastery work. So if I'm sitting and at universities, all we're using now is a grade in a class, where the student thinks because I got an A in AP Calc or Honors Calc, I can do it, because they're looking at themselves in a funhouse mirror. But now it isn't just the Black and Latinx community that we knew, and then we could point to the test and be like, yeah, but bro, this is where you are. Now, the only inputs they have is this idea that they can perform at this level because the grades have been one thing. And that's created a thing. So Kiana, talk a little bit about, I hate the word delusional, but it's no different than if my scale only went up to 199. At some point, I'd start believing it. And it would be unhealthy for me because I'd say, oh, I can go eat Ben and Jerry's because I only weigh 199. And so sometimes giving students those wrong inputs, and don't get me twisted, it isn't that test optional is bad. It just all happened at the same time. And now that's all we have, where before we had the test to at least point to say, no, but that at least is standard. Kiana, talk a little bit about IU and what you're seeing with some of that with students' grades and kind of that delusional nature of what we thought it meant in the past when we decided certain things, it doesn't mean anymore.
Yeah, wow. So when I try to frame a little bit around student expectation around academic achievement, it really does go back to some of the things we've already talked about with very trauma-induced mindsets and, even around college value in itself and what that really means to them, right? And I think that, and it also even goes to Teresa's point of expectations. We have a standardized way of grading that these students are used to from high school going into college. You got this F to an A+, right? But what's happening is that there's no one, and there's not this connection of, am I learning and mastering the content that I'm actually being taught while I'm in the classroom? I'm sort of assessing for myself my achievement level based on, and especially with grade inflation, I mean, with virtual, I mean, everybody did not have time to effectively produce learning outcomes or effective strategies to teach, period. I mean, that's just hands down. And neither did students have the ability, especially if they were weaker achievement, if they had already a weak academic achievement anyway, they didn't have time to prepare for an online class. So you literally are talking about a body of students, if we're looking at that fall 21, they already have these distorted expectations from what high school looks like coming into college. And then they're being set up in a situation where expectations aren't clear. They're very varied, inconsistencies in, how things are going to be delivered, whether it's going to be asynchronous, synchronous, whether if it says synchronous, I'm only going to do asynchronous because as a faculty member, I'm more comfortable that way. So, I mean, it's almost like it's the distortion isn't necessarily student induced, it's environment induced, it's cultural induced, it's indicator induced, it's practices induced. It's like, and so when we think about, where we are in student achievement, especially here, at where I work at, students will come and they will feel as if they have lost the ability to achieve because they got an F, in a class. And that will literally shift their look at the value of college. Can I really do this? Do I belong here? And nobody's educating them to let them know, son, daughter, it's the environment, and we're going to help you get through this. The environment is affecting you, so you can't even perceive or assess yourself right now because there's things going on around you. There's not a true assessment. You can't truly assess you, and I'm not going to be able to truly assess you. We're going to have to work through this together. So, so I really believe that word is the right word, right? They are delusional. There's delusional expectations, there's delusional acceptance, there's delusional giving up spirits, nobody's resilient, nobody knows how to bounce back anymore. I mean, everything is almost telling them that they don't have what it takes.
And the crazy part is they're delusional because we're delusional. I mean, when we all got started, I mean, how delusional were we, man? I mean, we did webinars called Plan for the Worst, Hope for the Best. Because back in March of 2020, there were folks in our industry telling me, everything will be fine. Ain't not gonna be fine. They're over here killing people in the streets. I mean, what? I mean, COVID is one thing, but then you add, I live up the road from where Breonna Taylor was murdered. I'm from Minneapolis. I mean, stop it. Nothing. And our students know we got an election coming up in a couple of months. They know, and they know not to believe us because we're the ones that are delusional, right? And one thing, and Christine has worked with me for a long, long time, and Nora was my student when she was in middle school. Look at that, Nora. Nora's my upward bound student, y'all, just to know. So I'm real gassed up and proud of Nora. The crazy part is people always ask me, Adam, why do students respond to you? Because this is how I am. I don't know how to be anybody else. I am 100% vulnerable, 100% me. And they know they're gonna get the truth, whether they like it or not, because I love them. Every time I leave class, I say to my students, love you. Now, if you took a higher ed class, it would say never tell students that you love them. And I said to them, my students after fall term, I said, so y'all think that's weird? And you know what they said? No, because we know you love us. I was like, how? We just know. That level of authenticity and vulnerability is so, ain't nothing special about me. I shouldn't be unique in this space, but y'all know I'm real unique. But they should feel that love all the time. Look, I love you. That's it. And because I love you, I'm not going to let you do that. I've worked at 3 SEC schools, okay, just so you know. SEC schools are truly exceptional. All they do is make exceptions. You have whatever you want, you do whatever you want. That doesn't feel like love to young people, right? I don't do optional. Teresa doesn't do optional. Christine doesn't do optional. Nora, Kiana, none of us do optional. Why would we have young people and do optional? Feels like you don't give a crap. You know what you say? Now you have a choice between these 3. We're going to swaddle you like those babies so you can feel the edges and feel loved and cared about. That's really what has to happen. TRIO's been doing that since 1965. Okay, so we just take that and amplify it and say, oh, even more now, we're not going to give you all those choices. It's like walking into Golden Corral and being overwhelmed. They don't even know what shoes to put on. And then we say, wow, if there isn't a student org you like, you can start one. And they're like, I'm just trying to decide what the weather is going to be today and if I should put on a jacket and where I should eat. No, just get up and go to class. Those are the pieces. And I think that overwhelmedness is even more now than ever, what is Kiana's talking about. Nora, you have a really interesting, because you were out in the fall. You know, fall's sexy time. Everybody loves fall term, right? No one likes winter term, no matter where. Miami, Florida, Miami of Ohio. Spring is winter term. Nobody likes it. So, Nora, you weren't on campus because you were off on family leave having a baby, a little one. What did you notice when you came back in January that was different, not just with the students, but with your colleagues? Was there anything different that you noticed with the team, what they were saying, how they were feeling? Because you were kind of those fresh eyes.
What a great question, Adam. For a bit of background, I went on my leave starting in August. So literally, I was out as soon as they were bringing everybody back to work, and the students were everything was switched on to in person. So I left right as that whole adjustment was happening. And so I returned in January, full force, and it was different. It was, and to give a bit more background, I work in University Colleges, or what our unit is called. So we primarily specialize in helping first-year students. They are our jam. And so our staff is pretty big. We have about 20 advisors or so, and it was so collegial prior to COVID-19, prior to all these things happening right in our world. Very collegial, and that hasn't changed, but doors were open, right? Because you could hear conversations happening from one advisor to the next, because our doors are right next to each other, and we can hear the conversation. And it was just, wow, we're all in this as a team. This is happening. And so we have gone, as when I came back, I could see it in action. Our advisors were separated. So we had a lot of turnover, because the Great Resignation is real. A lot of turnover. So a lot of new fresh faces that I had never met before, new advisors. And then coming into the mix, and some of those advisors weren't working here within our main offices. They were out in other buildings, kind of doing the work and expanding services in that sense. In a nutshell, very quiet. Doors are closed primarily nowadays, just because there's these Zoom sessions that are happening and options that students are taking advantage of, and it's just very fragmented. And I feel like some of that fragmentation is going into I feel like some of that is being absorbed by our students. So from what I've noticed in coming back, it's not this I don't know, students just feel more disconnected. Their attention span is fragmented from what I can tell. It's almost like, if I don't deal with this now, it's not happening, and it's like it has already been said before, it's that anxiety. I couldn't put the word to it, but it is that decision making. And it's this, if I don't have to deal with it now, 5 different things that are currently burning right now. And I don't see it burning. Is it really burning? You know, like, and it is burning. And so I actually work with a targeted caseload of students. So my caseload is a little bit smaller. And so I just do a lot of this one-on-one, like high touch calling on my students. They're quiet, like just from what I have gathered in these past couple months, they're quiet. They're disconnected, they're reaching out to me, and then sometimes they are not, and I don't hear from them, like I haven't heard from them in a while. And so I just have to put reminders on my calendar to like reach out to the student. I'm getting a lot of notifications that there's a lot of professors that are putting in notifications, our Redbird Cares system, where it's, you know, check in on the student because they're not showing up. They just dropped off the face of the earth and they haven't been in class for a while. Can you do a wellness check? And of course, our housing is understaffed, so they're not doing the wellness check anymore. They used to go in person and check in on the student at their housing, at the residence hall, and that's not happening anymore. So a lot of that comes back to us to reach out and check in on our students. So it's from what I noticed and what I've observed in these very limited past few months now, it's quite concerning. It is not like anything I've seen before. The houses are burning and I just don't know it yet. You know what I mean? And whereas before it was, they were asking for the help, and now it's like, I got this. I don't need to ask for it.
Nora, that's the one thing, you said a lot of excellent stuff, but one of the things that made me think of this was when you're talking about doors being shut. Has anybody ever wore a mask just because you didn't want to talk to people? Now, I talk to everybody. Like, y'all know I'm crazy, right? In the store, I talk, what do you do? How you doing? You know, my kids think I'm weird and all of that stuff. But even I, in this world, have put the mask on and the earbuds in and walked into Aldi's so I don't have to talk or look or interact. It's almost become, and then you add the layers of race to it, right? I don't want to deal with you. I'll go in with Ray-Bans and headphones and a mask. And look, part of it is COVID. Part of it is like being Darth Vader, man. I don't want to deal with you. I don't want to talk to you. I was a colleague of mine, we did reverse trick-or-treating. And so we went up to one of our advising units on campus, one of our colleges. I've never been in an advising unit that every door was shut. I mean, advising is Teresa coming to my office and going to Christine's and going to Nora's and going to Kiana's and us saying, hey, tell me about this. So what's going on with this? You had this crazy student. Did you know that you had to take 2 masks instead of this? And this is that. And that level of practice and workshopping, not only supporting each other and creating community, but advising is teaching each other, right? And supporting each other and saying, Christina's our MSW saying, no, Adam, we got to handle this way. Or Teresa saying, no, this calc with this teacher is better than this one. Hey, did you guys know this? Teresa, do you want to talk about this? But none of that is happening. I mean, I'm walking and it's like a ghost town. And everybody's in their offices with their doors shut. And I get the Zoom thing, but I think there's part of it that's also Darth Vader, right? I'm going to protect myself, right? There's a lot of people who are really scared to go back to campus and go back to work. And many of those people were Black women who are leading the Great Resignation. We're saying, I ain't going back to that trauma-filled space no more where I can't wear my hair and I can't be and I can't act and I can't think and I've got to be the lone one on the search committee, all of those things. And so people are putting up armor and are saying, but that, yeah, that's affecting our students. One of the great things I think Elena's talking about, Stephanie, I have your question that I wanted to ask, but I think Lloyd's is good. And Christine, you might want to take this one. Lloyd is talking about, what do we say to folks on campus that say, we had to go through all these anxieties when we were in school. Why are we enabling them? Are we making them little snowflakes? Because we had to go through it too. What do you say to people that say, we went through it, they can go through it?
We know life before the pandemic, and we went through it at a different time, right? If you look at adolescent development, okay, adolescents' world is their friends, is their peers. If you pull that from them in their formative years, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and then all of a sudden we force them into the adult world and we expect all of this from them, we can't expect that from these students now. We have to coach them. We have to mentor them. We've been through it. I have 2 kids. I run a department. My anxiety and my stress level for the last 2 years has been insane, but I've been able to handle it because I have coping mechanisms. I've been able to take care of myself mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, right? I have mentors. I lean on Adam. I lean on my colleagues, right? These students haven't had that because they were isolated for 2 years, and now we're expecting so much of them now. So that's how I would answer that, is we have the coping mechanisms because we were able to go through college in a different time. And yes, college was hard for us and challenging, right? First generation Latina female over here, right? Trying to figure out life and FAFSA and this and that and loans. But it was a different time. We've never been through this, right? And they went through it in their formative adolescent years, and now we're trying to expect something else from them. I don't think we need to be better. We need to be better for them in order for them to be better, right? So.
Well, and Christine, what do you say to those people? You say, give the grace you expected to receive.
Yes.
So
yes,
because people treated you like shit and told you that they did X, Y, and Z, and you should just be abused, treat them the way you would want to be treated. Okay. The reality is I went to school in Public Enemy, Do the Right Thing time. It was a really different world, right? We thought videotaping Rodney King being beaten would change things because people would see what we knew. It changed nothing, right? But again, we had to turn to it. And I think we go to these extremes with our students and we say, well, they have these trauma and many of them live in these homes where it's so traumatic and it's this and that. That is real. That is true. That is the reality. Yes, we have students who can't be who they are in their homes. They can't love who they want in their homes. We have students who have abuse and neglect in their homes. We also have students who are in their homes being the parent because their parents are working at Kroger 3 jobs. Right. Or they had to go to work during the pandemic because their parents are undocumented and couldn't get unemployment. We had that, right? But we also had students who every day, even if your girls, when they're in middle school and high school, they look forward to going and seeing their friends. And there's part of seeing their friends that teach them how to play in that pack. I think one of the reasons my grandkids are as, you know, they're fantastic, but they're wild, in part was they're in their family pack for 2 years and are not dealing with somebody from the outside, you know, because kids don't act around their friends like they act around their brother or their sister. And so that development piece, Arrested Development isn't just a TV show. That's like real stuff. And so we have 19-year-olds whose development stopped at 15.
Yep.
And the difference, as an old head to my guy Lloyd, that I would say is, bro, if you ever have scrolled through Instagram or Facebook and the crap that pops up that you don't want to see, it's like watching, if you ever saw the movie Get Out and the head dude's eyes open like this, you are forced to watch this crap. Now imagine doing that and being 13.
Yep.
And how that impacts your development, your thinking, your fear, your anxiety. And then they come to college and it's, okay, y'all, everything's back to normal. And they can barely take one step in front of another. I think those are, Christine, I really appreciate your answer to that. Carissa, can you talk a little bit, because you work with honor students, right? And honor students tend to always be wound really tight. Most of them are honors because they never had to study in high school. And you work at Miami. So Miami is honor students, but it's Miami honor students. So it's really good students, strong academic commitment, not used to failing, wound really tight. How are you all dealing with the concept that I like to call that a student could be doing well, but not necessarily being well or be well, right? So how are you all in your team, your advising team in the college, managing some of that when all they see, the students see, is their academic achievements, and they could be a 4.0 President's List student, but they could be cutting themselves, or they could be in an abusive relationship, or they could just be off their meds. Talk a little bit about doing well, but not necessarily a student be well.
So we're lucky because at our institution we have some strong committees and some offices that are focused on student retention and have some ways to flag that students aren't doing well in one way or another, whether that's faculty reporting. I know a lot of schools have like a care team or some kind of reporting mechanism, and so that's something that we're lucky to have as an institution, and that's helped us catch some of that. But it helps that, we try to meet with our students, especially in their first 2 years. We try to meet with them every semester just to say, how's it going? What's your plan? No, really, how's it really going? And not just stopping at, oh, you say you're fine. Well, I know what it means when I say I'm fine. And it might mean that I'm fine, or it might mean I don't want to talk about how I'm really doing. So, trying to build enough rapport and enough relationship with students right out of the gate that they know that I am a place they can come if they feel, they're not sure where to turn, and I'm not going to have the answer. And I'm clear with them, like I don't have the answer for everything. I specialize in honors, and I specialize in knowing who else can help you, because I'm not a counselor, and I am not a financial aid person, and I am not a student accessibility specialist, but I know who those people are. And when I don't have the answer, I'm gonna try to connect you to that. But I think you have to build a relationship with them to begin with. And when students know, have that conversation with me early on before things feel overwhelming, or at least as overwhelming, and then their friends are also having the same, their friends in honors are also having the same experience. When students know that there are places you can go when you need that help, then they're more willing to open up. And I think that's one of the things that we can do. And I know all of us here on this panel, everybody who's joining us today, we all have what we can control in our offices, and hopefully we all have other places of student support on campus where students can find that same thing. If it's not with me, and I know not every student wants to open up to me about that, but I hope that they are finding, and in some cases I know that they are finding, those other homes on campus where I know you don't want to tell me about the struggles that you're having as a trans-identified student, but I know that you have found a home where you do feel safe having that conversation, where you are feeling supported and loved, and you feel like you can be more open. And because I know I can't be that for everyone, I want to help them find that home where they can feel like they can be more open if I'm not that place for them.
That's great. H. Lou?
Yeah, I'm back, everybody. So I want to say a couple of things. I've heard a lot of really great insight, and I want to kind of take us back in time in a time machine. So let's kind of swirl back to March 2020, and even before that, but March 2020, we all, this time a few years ago, were told about COVID-19. We were all in a rush. All of a sudden, we find ourselves, and a lot of our family members, loved ones, rushed home. We're working remotely. The folks who are now, probably in their second or third year in college, they have spent a majority now of their collegiate careers remote, right? And now we have students who were, in their, high school career. They had spent not just, they've spent the second half of their high school career either hybrid or, in virtual classrooms, wearing masks, being told during this formative time in their social emotional development, to be 6 or more feet apart, right? This is an important time, right, to really understand and ascertain, like, who are they in relationship to others, right? During a time like this, similar to, I think, what Christine and Adam are talking about, in terms of being an adolescent, right, there's like hormonal shifts, there's like understandings of self and others, there's, you know, there are so many big things happening, right? And during that time, we have like really intense messaging, alternative facts, true facts, public health information about COVID-19 will kill you. You don't get to see people's faces. You cannot even see their emotions from, you don't even know what I look like from here down, right? So now I see people laughing because it's true, right? Then we have people who are in college and, you know, all of a sudden people are being told, go to college, you have these events, you're still being told, you know, oh my gosh, this is really scary. I'm leaving home if I can, right? So when we think about trauma, of course, you know, identity and integration, information integration is of course suspended. So when we think about learning, understanding of self, our social identities, even just relationship to others, right? Social cues, anything like that. If you're a little human or a medium human, your prefrontal cortex, that's nothing good's going on there, right? Like we're like, oh man, blame it on my prefrontal cortex. The biggest gaslight effect of it all, right, is like we're getting to this time and all of a sudden colleges and universities are like, we're good now. In the name of business, in the name of capitalism, we're gonna open it up. We have been told to distrust this COVID-19 thing. We can now somehow take off our masks and then you have people in front of you and you see their faces. All of a sudden, that's a shock to the system. I didn't even know Adam looked like that, right? This dude's been talking to me, what? Right? So I think about like the levels of shock and, you know, there's no way that students and the people who are supposed to support them, we know somatically, right? There's something here that may or may not be true. And then you have, you know, I heard you all say, yes, this is delusional. In some ways it is, but actually I would challenge that and say that's white supremacy and coloniality working pretty well. We're getting people's money, we're bringing them to colleges. They may be failing out or not, right? But at the end of the day, right, they're there to learn and live on campus. And do they have the skills? We're expecting high results, right? High results, but little to no challenge, you know, or little to no support. So you have a high challenge environment, little to no support. And then we have professionals here that are also struggling, right? Because we are going through a parallel process. And so is it fair to think that students and new professionals and mid-level, sometimes senior, who do not have the social skills, because all of us, not just students, all of us have not been able to have appropriate identity and information integration because of continued trauma since 2020, and for a lot of us before, throughout our entire lives. When you add, you know, additional disparities, right? There's social determinants of health in public health. Like there's so many layers here, right? So for those folks who talk about like they're snowflakes or I had to deal with it, well, there's a power imbalance there. Yes, there's a power imbalance for all of us who are leading this conversation. So how do we help students and I'm going to say new professionals or whomever we have power or agency over to better understand what are the clear expectations? How do we practice these conversations? How do we practice, you know, time management? Yes, we have to do that to a different level now. And that is a burden. And it is our duty if we are saying that we are in a helping profession. There are limits and bounds. However, it is up to us to also say, what are the limits and are we able to really meet the needs that are required? And if not, then we are not student ready campuses, period. And then we need to kick it back and have some really hard conversations in terms of curriculum development with our partners in primary, secondary, and then other post-secondary institutions, because this is not just about a great resignation. This is about a larger issue around coloniality and white supremacy and how we are all impacted by continued trauma.
Well, and the one thing, H. Lou, see, I
One
love
thing?
when you take,
No, I'm
I love when you take yourself off mute, sis. But one of the things that this really rings to is all of us work at public institutions, right? So Nora, right? Christine, Teresa, Kiana, myself. I work at a public flagship land-grant university. And I've been grappling with this because everybody on here knows, I know how difficult it's been, in particular for Black and Brown first-gen communities, with the as long as you can pay, you can stay mindset, and that it isn't everybody's season to be in higher ed, right? When we were in Akron, we made it harder, right, to come back unless you had been away. It was a clock, and we made it bring us 12 credits with a 2.0. I would tell students, this isn't for you. You don't have the money. I don't want you to be here. Please don't do this, right? I was shook after fall when I saw students in record numbers, not just in academic peril. We expected that, but they didn't want to leave. Like triple the numbers had registered for the next term. Like students who are failing all their classes don't register for the next term. They don't even look at their email. I mean, I was one of those students. I can tell you, I got up and watched Bob Barker and Days of Our Lives and went to lunch and worked out, and I was not, it's like checking the mailbox when you have a lot of debt. People don't do that. You avoid it. But they didn't want to leave. So then the question comes back to us as the public. Kiana works for the People's University. Teresa works for the People's, Nora, me, Christine. We all work for the People's University. When does a student stop being a student and just be the people? If they can't do school yet, you're the people. We act like we're a corporation. We're the people. They're the people. The University of Kentucky was founded to serve the people of the Commonwealth, period. That's it. The #1 healthcare provider in the state, the #1 everything. Well, wait a minute. There is no city in our state that can provide the mental, emotional, physical, behavioral health that the University of Kentucky can. So where are we sending them to when they are the people? Those are the challenges we're grappling with, right? Because if you aren't academically achieving, you got to go. If you can't pay, you got to go. But we work for you. Like, this is your institution, especially Indiana University. You are sitting in the People's University. This isn't our stuff. It's their stuff. It's their home. We're founded to serve them. And then because they can't achieve certain academic things on our time frame, we say you got to go. Rather than say, okay, we're going to get you with a counselor, we're going to get you a therapist, we're going to get you the support you need, we're going to require, see, that's the challenge. We don't require anything of them but payment. That's it. If you pay, you can stay. I mean, we have the ultimate control of retention because as long as students are paying their bill, they can hang around. I mean, SAP has more control than we do. That's it. Otherwise, if you're paying cash, you can stay. And those are the pieces that I think we're really grappling with. And additionally, the last thing I'll add, and Kiana, I wanted to get your opinions about this as well, is if we're saying that our freshman class is different, the assumption will be this is going to be different from now on. We're going to have different kinds of students. We have an opportunity in higher ed in specific right now, because next year it's going to be double. Then the year after that, it's going to be another class. And in 4 years, this is all we're going to have. And if we don't make things required and mandatory and scaffold and support and like Christine said, or Teresa said, intrusive, you can't just say we have counseling. Oh, we got a tutoring center. The only people who go to tutoring are students doing well. You have to make them go. Or we can go work at a private school or a for-profit institution. But in the end, when you work for the people and these are the people, then we have to make you, force you, encourage you to do the things that are going to make you well. And we don't do any of that right now. And these students more than any need it. So Kiana, talk a little bit about the realities of those numbers and knowing that we're going to have more. And then kind of the calling in working for the people of the state of Indiana and doing right by our students who sometimes just aren't ready to do the academic pieces.
Yeah, I really have been enjoying the things that I've been hearing, and something that's really sort of at the forefront of my mind is, as we set the stage, understand the realities of our different situations, and Heather Lou really laid some things out that we know some realities. There are some things that we know are the facts of what's happening, right? And I think that that's always important. I think, but when we're really moving towards being student ready, I think one of the biggest things, because we're all in recovery mode, all of us. There is not one person, and this goes back to being the people, the citizens of this earth, to actually move an agenda that's empowering, is really being honest that we all are in this mess together, and we're trying to climb out of this traumatized, re-traumatized, and kids are living with wounds that mama and pops have buried that now are uncovered because they've been living together for 2 years with nowhere to go. So everybody's stuff was in the same room, so you have all these realities, but nobody is taking time. And I'm putting this out as a call to action and a challenge to be responsible as the public, to dismantle biases and assumptions that we are holding, that pre-COVID, in COVID, and what people think is somewhat post-COVID. Because I think that that's the starting line. There's no place you can go until you dismantle those biases and assumptions. You can't be for the people if you don't know yourself. And you don't know the biases that you hold that's dictating the decisions that you're making, that is actually dismantling a system you're trying to build. So for me, I'm like, whatever we do, right, as we continue this conversation, as we continue moving our initiatives forward, yes, there are going to be some immediate quick fixes that we're going to put out there, because we have to still move as a system. We have to still make sure that we're communicating to higher, from post-secondary to secondary, to make sure K through 12 knows what they're doing. The pipeline is clear. We got to keep moving. State, agendas are still being passed down. State aid is still being distributed. Creative ways of dispersing monies is still happening. We're still operating, but there is an undercurrent that we cannot ignore that has broken citizenship in so many ways that I don't even know. There's no way to uncover that in 90 minutes, right? It's going to take more conversations of realness from every pod on the campus, not in silos, but cross departmentally, shared governance. All that's going to happen it's a demand. There's no option. Okay, there's no option. No more. Yes, we may have test option, right? Get your SAT and ACT scores and we'll take them. If not, no, there is no option. The conversation must happen. And you must come to the table. And if you really want to see change in your individual workspace, as well as in cross-departmental decisions, you're going to have to be real with yourself.
And
for the public. That's accountability. That's right. Ownership. Because it comes, I'm telling you, it starts from the top. Y'all know, I'm a minister, right? I don't care. It starts at the top. So if your top is messy, you're going to be messy. Period.
Well, and we've all, Christine and Teresa, Kiana, you two, all y'all, every place I've been, there's this idea among middle management that we can't do things. They won't let us. And everywhere I go, all we do is win. I mean, ain't nobody stopping us from winning. I've never got a no from a provost, a president, a VP. I get no's from people across here and down there. That's the they. The they is us. There is no lid on the damn jar. We putting the lid on the jar by saying, oh, this building, whatever the tower, it's just all bull crap. I've never seen it. I have a great boss right now and an amazing provost and president. They don't need to have my back because we share the same values and culture. So when I say no, there was a conversation on our campus among colleagues who was talking about students missing appointments. And I said, okay, well, how many appointments do they need to miss or cancel till the system locks them out? Lock out who? Well, students. They can't, got to teach them not to miss appointments. If I miss an appointment to my doctor, they're going to charge me a fee. Yeah, but first off, you ain't no doctor, one. Two, you didn't prepay the doctor. The student prepaid for your time. So if the student wants to, moreover, my brain immediately goes to, why are you worried about them missing the appointment and not worried about are they okay? Why am I not calling you to say, hey, Christine, are you all right? Because our appointment show rate is crazy. I bet if Teresa ran her number, nuts. They show up. They ain't going to class and they show up to appointments with us 92, 93, 95%. I don't show up for anything 95% of the time. That's insanity, right? But like Kiana's talking about, it all starts with us. We all have to remind ourselves, while every campus is getting DEI focused, slogans and titles and all of that is just a way for us not to do our work, like our personal work on us. It isn't the evil hate mongers, it's us. And if I was speaking to a campus and they wanted to talk about white supremacy in the classroom with faculty across this university, and all I did was talk about them and me and how we do better and get better. Well, when a student, no, well, but how about you though? Well, we're in a small town and nobody that's Black or Latinx want to come here. What? We need the club or a beauty salon? I mean, no, we want to be seen and be our authentic selves. Black and brown folks go work anywhere. Can I be me? Are people, you can't control your city. You can control you. And are you making space? And are you being kind? And are you recognizing that your colleague is the only Latina on the thing? And are you the one that says, hey, I really like Jose. I want him so that Christine doesn't have to say it, right? That's what we can control. And it's all what happens in our society is just like Dr. King said, we won't be judged by the horrific acts of our enemies, but the silence of our friends who say nothing, just nothing about anything. We call our students, this generation of young people, do not get this twisted, and we're going to stay on because this is too important. This generation of young people is the strongest, most adept, okay, smartest, toughest group of people ever in the history of this planet. And if anybody calls it, you all can call me, okay? There is nothing soft about them, weak about them. They know who they are. They love people. We have been horrible role models to them. And so if anybody thinks they're weak, they need to update their resume because they can get a job doing something else. Because these students, they humble me every day that they're still here. Because what we've shown them as the adults in their lives is criminal. It's just criminal. We put leaders up and vote, millions of us, 79 million vote for hate mongers, xenophobes. Don't even get me started. What are we doing? And then we say, oh, we went through, do y'all see what we're doing? That is what has to change. And we can't control the 79 million, we control ourselves. We can flip tables, we can speak out, we can say we love you, we can say we care about you, we can hold them accountable. We can do that, I can do that, that's it. For me, that's all that matters. But it has to start with personal accountability. And it's, yeah, all the program answers and the initiative answers, but all of us in this room know how to fix it, right? There's models. Christine, not that I would say anything bad, but Christine and her team run the most successful thing on their campus. just take it and amplify it. More. How do you do that? Let's do more of it. Let's do more of it. But because it's being run by people who look different, act different, are doing it different than what we prescribe to, we don't lean into that when that's what's winning. The football program at Teresa's campus, the student athletes at Teresa's campus are doing better, and they have full-time jobs in Fortune 500 companies. They're doing better. Black women who are student athletes are doing better academically than Black women in general. Why are we not taking what they're doing with the volleyball program at Miami University and doing more of it? Why? Because we think they have resources and money? Go ask them coaches and players if they have resources and money. They have nothing. But they have community and belonging and intrusion and holistic support and accountability and all of the things that are part of the Upward Bound program that Nora Diaz-Atkins was a student in. It was like not a choice. The last thing I wanted to talk about, and I know we've went way over, but that's all right. People can hang on if they want. Christine, you and Nora as mamas, right? Because we talked a lot about students. But this proximity trauma stuff is real. I liken it to being in the club, right? Not that I've been in the club, Kiana. Okay, Pastor, I ain't a club minister, Kiana. I'm not doing it. But when you used to leave as a young person and you wouldn't smell the smoke anymore, because, you know, you'd be in the club. And then you get home and it'd be in your clothes and it'd be in your hair. And then you take off your clothes, try to get in bed. Then you'd realize you stink. Then you have to get in the shower. So we, right, we have the secondary trauma that's become primary, but we also have this proximity stuff that when the students come in that Teresa's talking about and they unload it, our teams, it's affecting us, right? How we relate with our families, the people we love, our health, our well-being. Nora, as a mom, as a wife, as a human, as a partner, how do you manage, you know, and because we all want to love the students and support them, but if you do this work well, they're just going to keep coming. Like we're pulling loaves and fishes. They're just going to keep coming. Can't just be about them. It also has to be about us and our families and the people who count on us and love us. How are you mindful of some of that potential trauma and the impact on you and your family? What are some of your strategies in being mindful of that?
Oof. Yeah. Yeah, it's you definitely can't do this helping work without some help for yourself. Absolutely. There's days when I just come home and I'm just drained emotionally. My husband's like, "Oh, well, you don't actually like lift car parts and engines." That's what he does. He's a trucker. But I'm like, you know what? Like the emotional like stuff that you can bring home, that takes a long time to recover from, and sometimes you don't really, you just kind of maybe sometimes like work through it and then keep going, right? Because students need you, because your kids need you, because your family needs you. So you got to be everything at home, everything at work, sometimes all that students have sometimes, right? Because you're checking in on them and doing all this extra work to make sure that they're doing okay. And so, you know, with everything that's been going on politically and like not just politically, right, but with everything else, it's really, really important for me to find ways to get out of my office. Like my lunch hours are really a time for me to get out of my office and get some steps in. So whatever that looks like. I recently took up running as well, mostly to get out of my head. Because my head is loud, my mind is loud. There's a lot of stuff going on in there that I need to work through, and I feel like the running piece really helps to build some of that mental fortitude and strength. And so that's really important. I'm also real happy to share, I believe full-heartedly in therapy, because that, you know, if I'm going to be preaching it to my students, right, and connecting them to those resources, then should I not listen to my own advice? And so even if it's just to talk through things, and then that way I fill up some of that tank for myself, so then that I could be 110% version of myself to help where I can with my students. Because yeah, if they're coming in here and they're telling me everything that's going on, they're not leaving my office until I can connect them to somebody. It's just as simple as that. And so I just have to make sure that I feel happy with myself, that I am doing what I can at home. When I'm at home, I focus on my family because they need me too, and they're little. So I just try to be 100% there. So that means putting my phone away, not having my email accessible on my phone sometimes. And I work in a profession where I can do that. I know housing can be very different, and you know, you're kind of on all the time. But I'm thankful that I can do that on the weekends, and then when I'm back, you know, at work, then I can do that 100%, you know, give it my all. But there's just some ways that I cope. But yeah, you just take it one day at a time, really one day at a time, and do the best you can.
Or Diaz Atkins, y'all know that's my student, right? Right. So I'm so proud of you. I mean, yes,
No,
awesome.
honestly, it's, you know, the Upward Bound program that Adam Smith ran in the Rockford Belvedere area was life-changing to so many students, not just myself, but to so many people. So yeah, so yeah.
Christine Rose, how about you? How are you? Because it's a work in progress, right? I'm sure it's not.
It is.
We're all today I was listening to Being Gracefully Broken. I mean, we are all that, right, Kiana?
Mhm. I would say moving your body. So if anybody is struggling with anything, move your body. We have been sedentary for 2 years, and it is insane how unhealthy that is. So for me, I get up every morning, 5:30, 6 o'clock, and I do a workout. I know that's not the best time for everybody, but that's how I do it. I used to think that Adam was crazy when he did that before, and now I'm like, oh my God, it's the best time. That is my me time. I also have little ones, and I come to work and I'm giving and giving and giving and giving. And then I go home and I'm giving and I'm giving and I'm giving. So I need my me time. So that is my space in the mornings, 30 minutes. I also believe in hydration. So drinking water, please drink water. Our bodies are made of water. We need water. So I really believe that moving your body helps. And then also, for the last 2-3 years, I noticed I was available all the time on my phone via Teams, people texting me, calling me. I was working at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, and that was just not a good way to work. So on the weekends, I'm very present with my kids. I make sure that I put my phone away. I'm not answering emails. And then I've also, when I moved to Ohio, I didn't have a community. So I'm finding more of a community now. I work with a nonprofit. It's called Proyecto Raíces. So I'm giving back. So I'm working with a lot of other strong, empowering, amazing Latina women in the community, and I get my piece of home. I eat amazing food as well within the organization. We cook together and we eat together, and the kids are hanging out and playing and different things like that. So finding community has really helped me as well. So I think those are the 3 things: moving your body, drinking water, and finding community. Whatever community means for you, find those pieces of community. And if you need me, I will also drop my email as well for community, because I'm here as well.
Christine knows there was a time in our industry where people would tell me, Adam, we're not a social service agency. We don't hire those social workers, those MSWs. They want to fix everybody. You know, yeah, they just, you know, we're hiring bankers. There was a time we were hiring bankers, people out of the banking industry. Now we want every MSW, therapist, counselor, human services professionals, sociologist, Teresa Radomski-Bamba, minister, Kiana Preston, that we can get in higher ed. One of our goals at UK is for it to be a destination for those folks, right, that want to pour into, but then also creating space. You know, it's so important. Nora, I really appreciated you talking about and willingness to share. You know, finding a therapist, finding someone to talk to, you know, making sure that you can put the mask on you first. For a long time in my career, it was just all about that job. And y'all know these jobs aren't made, that's why it's called work. It's not made to be functional, it's made to be dysfunctional. At some point, we are not entitled to our universities not changing. Miami changed the whole mascot, and a whole bunch of students don't remember when they were the Redmen before, right? Except for on the football stadium, they still have the logo on there, Teresa. They only remember Redhawks. We don't have any entitled to no change in higher ed, right? We work there, they live there. The truth is, it isn't our house, it isn't our home. No, nobody can come to the Rose house and start changing stuff because it's her house. But this ain't our house. And one of the struggles that we all have is we pour so much into work and we think work is our home. And that's why higher ed is so resistant to change. It's because, well, it's my stuff, we can't change this. Somebody told me at my job that we tried this before. We've been here since 1865. Yeah, we've tried just about everything. Of course we have, but this isn't your home. This isn't your family. Find your work and then find your job. And sometimes those things overlap, but this isn't your family. And so finding ways to do that and taking good care. And Christine, the last thing I'll leave everyone with, because I appreciate y'all for sticking around, is being willing to name it and give yourself grace. We're all people, and we are just as affected by all the things as our students. My work is no longer students, it's harder. It's the people that work with students and the people that work with the people that work with students. And we're so much harder than students are. Oh my, students are easy for me. I do some students all day, and it's hard not to go to what I love, but that's how I know I can't do it, because I have to do the big stuff and try to love and give grace to my faculty colleagues, my dean colleagues, my director and assistant dean colleagues, the same kind of grace and love I want them to give to my students. Every day I try to remind myself of that I can't expect them to do that with our students if I'm not willing to do that with them and see them as the students now. But also naming it and saying, you know, this is trauma. It was the best part of what Heather always says brilliant stuff, but the best thing is calling it what it is. It's okay. And giving yourself space and grace to say, okay, I'm jacked up too, and we'll all get there together. Is really important. So thank y'all, panelists. Thank y'all so much for being so vulnerable, for sharing your stories. All your contact is available. We will send it out. Heather will do her amazing blog that everyone will get who stayed, and the recording, so yeah, you all can share. H. Lou, anything for the good?
I just want to say thank you to y'all. Stay safe. Take care of yourselves. And yeah, you all will be getting a recording early next week as well as a blog. So stay tuned.